You've been playing guitar solos for years. You know your pentatonic boxes, you've got your stock licks, and maybe you can rip through your favorite solos note for note. But when it comes to improvising something that actually flows with the chord changes, you feel lost. That's why I'm making this no BS lesson, 3 steps to take your solos from amateur to pro by highlighting the chord changes. Because this is how pro guitar players approach soloing. Not by mindlessly shredding through scale patterns and hoping it'll sound good, but by targeting the money notes in each chord and landing on them at the right moments every time. By the end of this video, you'll know how to make the chord changes so clear that you can mute the backing track and still hear them. Step 1 is dead simple, but almost no one does it. Learn the chord progression before you solo. Sounds obvious, but be honest, when you fire up a backing track on YouTube, do you actually stop and listen to the chord changes? Or do you see minor blues in A minor and launch straight into the same pentatonic licks that you always play? That's like driving in a new city without a map. So here's the map we're going to follow today. The minor blues progression in A minor. It's a 12-bar form built on the 1, 4, and 5 chords of the A natural minor scale, which are A minor 7, D minor 7, and E minor 7. In this track, the last bar sneaks in an altered 5 chord, E7 sharp 9, also known as the Hendrix chord. But when we get to soloing concepts to use over this track, we'll keep it simple and focus on the basic 1, 4, and 5 chords. So first step, I want you to play through this progression with me until it's locked into your ear. That way, when we get to scales, arpeggios, and phrasing, you'll actually know the structure of what you're soloing over. Right, now let's dig into how to highlight the chord changes. Everything I play today comes from one 7-note scale called the Aeolian mode, also known as the natural minor scale. Now here's the big picture of my approach to minor blues soloing. Over the 1 chord, I stick with scale-based vocabulary. Over the 4 and 5 chords, I shift to more of a chord tone targeting approach. Listen to this line played over the first chord change in the progression, and then we'll break it down. So what do I mean by scale-based vocabulary? Well, this starts over the 1 chord, the A minor 7. And in this line, I'm visualizing positions 3 and 4 of the A minor pentatonic. But I also add in Aeolian's natural second with that little semitone bend on the B string. Because I'm basing the phrase on both A minor pentatonic and A Aeolian, everything feels locked into the harmony of that A minor 7 chord. The chord tones in the A minor 7 are baked into those scales. So I don't even have to chase them, they just show up naturally if I move through those patterns. And that's why over the 1 chord in a minor blues, I almost always lean on scale patterns. It keeps the phrasing fluid while still sounding connected to the chord. Now, before I show you how to tackle the first chord change, quick note, everything I'm walking you through today comes straight from my new course, 80/20 Lead Guitar Mastery. It's launch week right now, which means it's 50% off until October 21st. So if you're watching this the day it's published, you've still got some time before the sale ends. Inside, I show you how to apply the 80/20 rule to your guitar practice, focusing only on the 4 modes that actually appear in real rock, blues, and country solos, and cutting out the rest. The link is in the description if you want to check it out. All right, let's talk about hitting that first chord change. Even though the 4 and 5 chords are also technically made of Aeolian notes, you don't want to keep visualizing everything from the 1 chord when they arrive. Like I mentioned in the intro, that's what most amateur intermediate players do in their solos. They stick to scale pattern noodling for all chords, make no effort to highlight the chord changes, and then wonder why their licks don't sound connected. Fortunately, the solution is quite simple. Switch to arpeggio shapes that target the money notes of those chords. Listen again to how I move from the 1 to the 4 chord in this line. What I'm visualizing there is a D minor 7 arpeggio shape. Now think of an arpeggio as a chord pulled apart. It's got the exact same notes as a D minor 7 rhythm voicing, but laid out across the fretboard in a way that's more melodic, ascending order, low to high, perfectly suited for lead playing. As soon as that D minor 7 chord arrives, I hit the D root note in this arpeggio shape. And even that on its own, just hitting the root note, without the rest of the arpeggio notes, it makes it sound so connected to the chord progression. And then when you add in the other chord tones after the root, it takes it to a whole other level. Now, a common issue I see with some of my students when they first start thinking about chord tone targeting with arpeggios in their minor blues solos is they will nail the first chord change from 1 to 4, but neglect to resolve back to the 1. So Lars, one of my 80/20 students, he actually sent me 2 solos that he recorded before and after studying the course. And in solo number 1, you can hear him do exactly what I just described. He nails the first chord change and hits the chord tones for the D minor 7 chord. But when the A minor 7 comes back around, you can hear him still lingering on that D minor 7 sound after the chord has passed by. But after a few months of studying the lessons and taking on board my feedback, he fixed this with ease. And so now let's listen to the same chord change from Lars's second solo, which he sent me a few weeks back. Instant improvement. He's no longer only thinking about the change from 1 to 4, he's also conscious of resolving back to the 1. So now we've covered the first chord changes in the minor blues progression, 1 to 4 and then 4 back to 1. But what about the 5 chord, the E minor 7? Remember, this chord appears in the final 4 bars. You've got 1 bar of the 5 chord, 1 bar of the 4 chord, and then a couple bars of the 1 chord. So my approach for the 5 chord is exactly the same as what I just demonstrated for the 4 chord. I use arpeggios to hit the money notes in that E minor 7. So check out this line that moves through the final 4 bars of the progression where you've got the 5 chord, the 4 chord, and the 1 chord all appearing in the space of 4 bars. So for the E minor 7 chord, I use this E minor 7 arpeggio shape. Since all of the notes in the arpeggio exist in the chord, it sounds very connected. When the D minor 7 chord arrives, I simply move that down 2 frets to connect my note choices to that chord. And as the 1 chord, the A minor 7 comes back, I switch back to my A minor pentatonic and Aeolian scale-based vocabulary. So to recap, the 3 things you want to start doing in your solos to take them from amateur to pro are: 1, learn the chord progression before you start your solo. 2, use scale-based vocabulary over the 1 chord. And 3, use arpeggios to target the money notes, the chord tones in every chord change. Of course, there's much more that goes into playing solos that highlight the chord changes at a pro level. And if you'd like to dig deeper, that's why I created 80/20 Lead Guitar Mastery. With 16 hours of video lesson content, this resource gives you everything you need to ditch your intermediate soloing rut. It doesn't overwhelm you with 100 different scales or exotic modes that you will never use, because that's typically what keeps intermediates stuck, spinning their wheels for years. Instead, it laser focuses on the 20% of lead guitar concepts that drive 80% of your progress. Once again, the 50% off launch week sale expires on the 21st of October. So if you'd like to get in before the doors close, the link is in the description box. But if you're still on the fence, you might want to check out this 2-hour masterclass that gives you an in-depth preview of everything you'll learn inside.